go. So you go to the committee room,
Right.
stream, even though we're not in the committee room. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2 3. Yeah, it's working. All right, and that's it. Julia, we are good to go.
Okay, give me 1 minute. Oh, I see that's not going to work. Okay. She's
Still learning the rules.
hello, welcome and congratulations. Okay, here, come on over here. Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. So on Tuesday, the mayor announced his executive budget for fiscal year 2027 of $124.7 billion, down from $127 billion proposed preliminary budget. The council was very glad to see that the proposed budget was balanced in part through savings, through efficiencies, through revenue raisers that the council had recommended. And in total, over half of the council's proposals that had been included in our April 1st budget response were included in the mayor's executive budget. Importantly, the books were balanced without implementing property tax increases, harmful cuts to essential services, or the drawing down of budget reserves, all issues that the council stood firmly against since day one. We also want to thank Albany leaders for their commitment of billions of dollars worth of additional assistance in the form of both funding and expense relief, and we look forward to having a finalized state budget soon so that we can fill in the remaining details. Through our executive budget hearings, which will start on May 26, the council will continue our work to identify further savings, to make sure that programs are fully funded, and to really push forward with the council's priorities. More importantly, now begins a real fight for the council's funding priorities, from greater investments in our schools to our libraries, parks, cultural institutions, to free public transit for the lowest income New Yorkers. Advocating for these priorities is how we share our plan for uplifting all New Yorkers and how we demonstrate where our true values lie. And we look forward to those many conversations with the administration in the coming weeks. Tuesday was a special day for another reason, because it was the day that our colleague Carl Wilson was sworn into the City Council. I want to officially congratulate our newly elected council member. I want to welcome him to his first Red Room officially as a council member. His victory is so well deserved. He has such deep roots within the community. He knows the council inside and out, and I know he is going to hit the ground running on day one, as he already is. And I want to welcome our new council member, Carl Wilson, to say a few words.
Thank you, Speaker Menon, and thank you to my colleagues. It's really incredible and an honor to be back at City Hall, where I've previously served as a staff member for the past two council members. So I was very excited to get my pin just a few minutes ago. I guess that makes it official. But it is a real honor to join this body, to be able to fight for not only my constituents, but the citizens of our city, to continue the fight for affordability in housing and better public transit and clean and safe public spaces and schools. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be part of this work, and I'm really grateful to be serving with such an esteemed body and great colleagues. So thanks so much. I'm really excited.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Wilson. We're so thrilled to have you. Last week, we rallied in front of City Hall to advocate for the expansion of fare fares, one of our top priorities that we've highlighted in our preliminary budget response. Amid an affordability crisis that is hurting residents across the 5 boroughs, our proposal would specifically provide meaningful relief for New Yorkers earning up to 150% of the federal poverty level by making their bus, subway, and paratransit completely free. We also call for embracing automatic enrollment for those who qualify, because currently only 40% of those New Yorkers that are eligible for fare fares are actually utilizing the program. That is not a passing grade. That, as we said in the hearing, is actually a failing grade. And so we have to fix a system that is broken. And so I think through the council's proposal that we put forward, we would do that. And so that is why it's so important that we also have automatic enrollment, because it is far too underutilized. A more affordable public transit system makes a big difference, and it's a difference our city must deliver. Before we turn to our stated meeting agenda, I want to talk about an issue that is really worsening the affordability crisis in subtle but important and oftentimes undetected ways, and that is surveillance and dynamic pricing. Today, Majority Leader Abreu and I are each introducing legislation that will restrict those practices from being utilized to harm consumers in our city. The proliferation of e-commerce and the introduction of digital price tags means that companies are able to mine data that helps predict consumer buying behavior. And as someone who has been a consumer protection lawyer for a very long time and the former commissioner of the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, to me, this is the wave of the future in terms of what has to happen for consumer protection so that we prevent New Yorkers from being taken advantage of by this insidious practices. In some cases, the records that are used to raise the cost of specific products just for certain consumers, that is actually known as surveillance pricing. It's a practice that is unjust, particularly at a time of high inflation, and it's a practice that must end. By passing this legislation, we would be the first jurisdiction in the country to ban surveillance pricing, giving consumers more faith in the system, making transactions more transparent, and ultimately saving New Yorkers money. Majority Leader Abreu's bill seeks to address the issue of dynamic pricing so that grocery stores cannot frequently alter prices in artificial ways that end up also hurting consumers. That bill limits price changes to once every 24 hours so that fluctuations in market conditions can fairly be adjusted for each day, but also so that a gallon of milk that perhaps costs $5 when you put it in your shopping cart does not cost $8 by the time you pay. With this legislation, we are shining a light on these hidden injustices, many of which are only now starting to appear in the city, which is why this is the right time to be addressing them before the harm becomes truly widespread. This is just another step we're taking forward in our efforts to make this city more affordable, more livable, and a city that all of our residents can thrive in. So now we're going to move on to our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following land use items. 9201 4th Avenue rezoning will facilitate the development of an 11-story mixed-use building with 96 residential units in Councilmember Kayla Santosuoso's district. 46 Nelson Street rezoning will facilitate the development of a 7-story mixed-use building with 108 residential units in Councilmember Alexis Avila's district. We'll also be voting on the mayor's appointment of Lisa Kersavage on the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Today, we will vote on the following pieces of legislation. Resolution 26, sponsored by Councilmember Alexa Aviles, would call on the New York City Department of Education to establish May annually as Labor History Month in New York City public schools. Introduction 13-A, sponsored by Councilmember Savina Brooks Powers, would require the Department of Transportation to install illuminated solar-powered traffic control devices at a minimum of 200 crosswalks by December 31st, 2031, with 40 installations required by December 31st, 2027. Councilmember Brooks Powers could not join us today. We want to thank her for her work. I'm happy at the end to answer questions on it. This was formerly my bill. I care a lot about this bill, and it's a real public safety bill in terms of preventing pedestrian and cyclist injury and death. Introduction 139-A, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, would require the Department of Social Services to provide confirmation notice electronically via Access HRA to applicants of public assistance regarding their benefits interview. Now I want to invite Councilmember Cavan to come up to talk about her bill.
Thank you, Speaker. This legislation actually came out of another related bill that I passed last year called the Receipts Act. And that law required DSS and HRA to provide a detailed confirmation notice or a receipt when people apply or recertify benefits like cash assistance and SNAP, or when they submit documents in support of their application. Because, I mean, maybe the people in this room would not be surprised how often those things get lost. When we were working on that bill, advocates and constituents kept asking if we could do something about another part of the application process, the eligibility interview. And this has always been a confusing part of the process for applicants. In fact, according to a story in the City Limits, shout out to local reporting, failure to complete the eligibility interview is by far the biggest reason applications for cash assistance and SNAP are being rejected. So we worked with advocates to craft this small but really impactful bill that's going to help millions of New Yorkers who rely on cash assistance and food stamps. The bill is going to require DSS to provide benefits interview confirmation notices, and they'll have to do that within 72 hours after conducting an eligibility or recertification interview for cash assistance or SNAP. And the confirmation notice must be provided in writing, and it applies to a range of assistance types, including emergency grants. So the notice will include a confirmation number for the interview, as well as details like the date, the type of benefit the interview was for, and the applicant's number if it was a phone interview. And this important piece of legislation is going to help make the process of accessing benefits much more transparent and efficient. So thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Introduction 741-A, sponsored by Councilmember Lee and Councilmember Caban, would require a task force to review and make recommendations to improve New York City's 988 mental health crisis system. The Department of Health and Mental Hygiene would also be required to report annually on 988 activity and conduct a citywide education campaign in multiple languages so that all New Yorkers know how to access help. I'm going to ask, Councilmember Lee's not here. Councilmember Caban, could you come up and talk about this? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm incredibly grateful to Councilmember Lee, who is the former chair of the Committee on Mental Health and Substance Use, who I have just had the pleasure and privilege of partnering with on this. And this is really, really important. The 988 line is a lifeline staffed by trained mental health professionals available in multiple languages. It's confidential and it's free. And when someone is in crisis, a call to 988 can mean the difference between getting care and getting a knock at the door from someone who provides the opposite. But a lifeline that no one knows about saves no one. And right now, too many New Yorkers have never heard of it. And that's the gap that this bill begins to close. So by requiring DOHMH to launch a real, robust, multilingual public education campaign on 988, we're making a commitment that those who have been failed by our mental health system and most harmed by over-policing will finally know that this option exists. New Yorkers deserve to know that 988 is not 911, and it's not going to criminalize their pain. It will pick up the phone and connect them to care. And that's not a radical idea. It's the bare minimum of what a city that is serious about mental health owes to its people. So I'm really excited about this one and really grateful to Councilmember Lee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Today we're going to vote on a package of legislation in advance of the 2026 FIFA World Cup to ensure New Yorkers and small businesses are prepared to benefit from the meaningful opportunities provided by this global tournament. We do not want our small businesses in New York City to be left out. Resolution 428-A, sponsored by Councilmember Chanel Thomas Henry, would celebrate the arrival of the 2026 World Cup in the city of New York. Introduction 847-A, sponsored by Deputy Leader Sandra Ung, would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to establish and implement an outreach and education program to create awareness of common scams targeting and impacting tourists. Education materials would be required to be posted on DCWP's website in multiple languages and updated annually. Now I invite Deputy Leader Ung to talk about her legislation.
Thank you, Speaker. New York City welcomes millions of visitors each year to experience everything our city has to offer. And in doing so, they play a vital role in supporting our local economy. But for too many visitors, that experience can be ruined by bad actors looking to take advantage of tourists, unfamiliar with our city and their rights as consumers. With global events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup on the horizon, it's more important than ever that we are prepared. That is what Intro 847 is about, making sure tourists have the tools and information that they need to enjoy their time here without the fear of being misled or exploited. My bill will require the Department of Consumer and Workers Protection to develop clear, accessible, multi-language educational materials that help visitors identify and avoid the common scams and provide real-time information on how to report fraud and offer straightforward guidance on how to file a consumer complaint. This is a common sense step that builds on the work we are already doing to protect consumers while recognizing the unique vulnerabilities that tourists may face. My legislation is a part of a broader package of legislation aimed at making sure that every New Yorker benefits from the economic opportunities that the World Cup offers. efforts. I want to thank again Speaker Menon for spearheading and championing these efforts to ensure that our communities across New York City can capitalize on these moments.
Thank you. Introduction 822, sponsored by Council members Virginia Maloney and Chanel Thomas Henry, would temporarily co-name two thoroughfares and public places as Terry Henry Way in Manhattan and Pele Way in Queens during the 2026 World Cup. The street co-namings would be repealed on November 1st, 2026. Now I invite Councilmember Maloney to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Thank you, Speaker Menon. As we know, this summer, New York will welcome the 2026 FIFA World Cup. As chair of the Economic Development Committee, I've spent the last few months asking how we make sure that New Yorkers actually benefit from these events. While the matches are across the river, the energy, the culture, and the fan experience will be felt in the city. Thanks to Governor Hochul and Mayor Mondami, New Yorkers will have access to 5 Fan Fest sites across each of the 5 boroughs. And today, the council will vote on this legislation to co-name 2 of those fan sites, streets on those fan sites. Thierry Henry Way in Manhattan at Rockefeller Center in my district, and Pele Way in Queens at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center. For most New Yorkers, the fan villages will be where we experience the World Cup. Thousands of fans, big screens, local vendors, small businesses, and family programming right in our neighborhoods. And naming these streets gives communities a stake in the event. Thierry Henry is a global legend and a part of New York's soccer history. He moved here in 2010, became one of the defining players for the New York Red Bulls, and embraced this city as his own. This legislation and the rest of today's package celebrates a globally beloved sport that for billions of people is tied to identity, memory, and community. As New Yorkers prepare to welcome the World Cup, it's fitting that our public spaces reflect that unity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Introduction 849-A, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Dr. Natasha Williams, would require New York City Tourism and Convention, or an agency designated by the mayor, to develop and implement a cultural passport program to promote tourism in at least 5 participating sites in each borough for a minimum period of 1 year. The Deputy Speaker is not here yet, so if she comes, she'll speak about her bill. But I'll move on to Introduction 808-A, sponsored by Majority Leader Sean Abreu, which would require New York City Tourism and Conventions, or an agency designated by the mayor, to develop and publish an events calendar and digital map of small businesses hosting World Cup events or offering World Cup promotions no later than 1 week before the start of the tournament. And Introduction 807-A, also sponsored by Majority Leader Abreu, would require the Mayor's Office of Citywide Event Coordination and Management and the Department of Parks and Recreation to require that the organizer of any special event with a permit for 500 or more expected attendees on city-owned land during the 2026 World Cup ensure the provision of temporary public bathroom access for attendees. Now I invite Majority Leader Abreu to talk about his bills.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to echo what you said earlier, that it is so important that New York City is going to be taking on surveillance and dynamic pricing, which is going to be huge for our consumers and is going to save money for them as well. The World Cup is a little less than 1 month away, and I'm thrilled that we'll be passing critical legislation that will get New York ready to host. The city will be creating a calendar and map of World Cup activities, including viewing parties, street festivals, performances, and cultural programming to celebrate participating nations. New York City is one of the most international cities on earth. Nearly every one of the 48 nations competing in this tournament has a neighborhood, a community, a restaurant, or a cultural hub right here in our 5 boroughs. This legislation makes sure that fans know where the action is and that the energy gets activated not just in Midtown, but in Jackson Heights, in Fordham, in Flatbush, Bay Ridge, Washington Heights, you name it. The city will be reaching out to small businesses and event organizers so that their locations and events are included in these resources and fans are able to find them. We're also expanding bathroom access at the many events that will be going on during the World Cup. This will include installing temporary facilities in high-traffic areas, signage directing visitors to nearby bathrooms, cleaning and staffing these facilities, and prioritization of accessible bathrooms as well. The World Cup in New York is a once-in-a-generation event, and we're making sure our city is ready to provide residents and visitors alike with the best possible experience. I want to thank Speaker Menon and Economic Development Committee Chair Virginia Maloney for getting these bills across the finish line. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That concludes our stated agenda. Wow, no on topic. Okay. Great. Thank you to everyone. Okay, thanks. No one's interested in our bills? Yeah, that's so we have no questions. Hi, do you mind speaking up, Sahaley? Sorry. Yeah.
What did you see in the mayor's executive budget proposal that you wanted to see included in the adopted budget? And what do you think will be remaining sticking points in negotiations?
Sure. Well, I was really pleased that property tax was dropped. That was something that we had pushed back hard on, and we said, was really non-negotiable for us, and really across the board, the members were against that. So I was very pleased to see that. We were also very pleased that the executive budget that the mayor agreed not to dip into the rainy day funds. That's something we had warned about would not only lead potentially to a downgrade by the credit rating agencies, but also potentially cost the city billions of dollars in increased borrowing costs. We were also pleased that over half of our ideas, both savings ideas and revenue raisers, so the UBT tax, for example, as a revenue raiser, was included. And so now the work begins in terms of our hearings to make sure that subject by subject matter and during these committees, we make sure the council priorities are getting addressed.
Do you think that you're in a stronger position now on the budget than the council and prior mayoral administrations have been? I guess most recently the prior administration.
I feel very good about where we're at. I think we put forward a really strong budget response on April 1st, and I think the proof is in the pudding, the fact that over half of those ideas were included in the executive budget, both revenue raisers like the UBT tax as well as our savings ideas. So I think that is a very good result, as well as dropping the property tax or dropping the rating of the rainy day fund. So I feel that the priorities that the council put forward were addressed significantly.
Hi, Council Speaker. So there was an NBC report yesterday that Ken Griffin wants the mayor to apologize for the video that he made outside Griffin's home that he felt it targeted him. Do you think the mayor should apologize, and is there more that the mayor should do to extend a sort of olive branch to businesses right now?
Well, I will say this. When the video came out, I did reach out to Ken Griffin because I don't think that we should be, again, I don't think ad hominem personal attacks are productive. I just don't think that's a path forward. I think right now we have a situation where the city has lost 27,000 jobs compared to the 190,000 the city has gained each of the prior 4 years. This is a real crisis. We cannot continue to lose jobs to states like Florida and Texas, for example, where Texas has more financial jobs right now than New York. So I think it's really important, and that is one of the reasons why we created this APEX division, a new economic wing of the City Council that I created back in January to focus on job creation and job retention.
And what did you say to Griffin when you spoke to him?
First of all, I reached out to him to indicate that those jobs are important to New York City. And so that was really the message that I gave, and that's really what I think we need to focus on moving forward. We want those jobs in New York. They are important to stay here. Hi. Hi, and welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you, likewise. So Councilwoman Vernikov tweeted on May 1st in her talking about the anti-Semitism task force on behalf of her and Councilmember Dinowitz. We urge the NYPD to acknowledge that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And I'm wondering if that is the official stance of the task force and if you personally agree with that.
I have not seen that particular tweet. I would say that obviously the point of the task force is to combat anti-Semitism in all of its forms. I think there obviously is real legitimate criticism of Netanyahu and the Israeli government. There was criticism before October 7th. There is criticism now. I have a lot of criticism of what is happening there. I think what is important when we combat anti-Semitism is we're making sure that for example, what happened just recently with a flag at NYU with swastikas, or what we saw in Queens with swastikas being painted on synagogues and on people's homes, or 73 swastikas in Brooklyn, that is what needs to be addressed. So I'm really focused on that, and I think our 5-point plan to combat anti-Semitism does just that.
School enrollment is declining, but school budgets are not. Do you support continuing to give schools more money, even the ones that have declining enrollment?
So one of the things that I'm incredibly concerned about, and I've been talking about this for quite some time, is with the DOE budget, right now $12 billion of the DOE budget is on consulting contracts, $12 billion, which actually have not been audited. And that came out at the hearing when I asked DOE had they ever audited those contracts. So I'm very concerned about that. Obviously, we know that we have decreasing enrollment. That is a real issue. I think we need to be figuring out from a policy standpoint, how are we getting those parents instead to come back to the public schools? What do we need to do to get them back into the public schools and increase enrollment? So I think we need to focus on those efforts.
Two questions. Just to follow up on what Rosie said, she asked you if you think that anti-Zionism is akin to anti-Semitism. I didn't hear a yes or a no. Can you tell us? And then secondly, can you articulate your criticism of the Israeli government, Netanyahu? And then also, there's a looming Long Island Railroad strike.
Okay. I'm going to say.
Do my first two.
So first of all, I think anti-Semitism can take a number of different forms. And I think, I think you all know I'm very proud to be the first Jewish speaker. It's something that's very important to me. I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I'm incredibly proud, again, of being the first Jewish speaker. So I think the comments that were made at the Anti-Semitism Task Force are important. I think, again, but I know that there are many different forms that this can take. I think in terms of Netanyahu, what happened before October 7th, you had tens of thousands of Israelis in the streets protesting what was happening in the judicial system, and that was happening before October 7th. Now we have a situation, and I was very concerned about lack of humanitarian aid. And, we are going to end up in a couple months, with perhaps new leadership in Israel. And I think, at this point, we really need to have a reset just in terms of where we are on some of these issues.
Do you think that anti-Semitism...
Again, I'm not, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's 5:25. It's also 10 minutes.